Evening to join us this evening. This is Rosalind Fletcher. I'm the Regional Director for College Counseling here at Great Hearts, Arizona, and I'd like to welcome and thank our longtime friend, Monica Felton, for hosting this presentation tonight. Monica has been a longtime supporter of Great Hearts Academies, providing financial aid information to our families for the past, 12 years plus. She's also a former parent of a Great Hearts student, so she knows the rigor that our students endure each day and each evening at home. Very familiar with the Great Hearts education and the academies across the network. So thanks, Monica, for taking your time this evening to educate us, inform us, and give us a little update about what's new in terms of financial aid and preparing to pay for college. And I'm going to hand it over to you.
Great. Well, thank you so much. I'm thrilled to be Great Hearts' trusted guide for college planning, college financial planning. First off, families, I really want to commend you for putting your kids in the Great Hearts system. As Rosalind said, I am very familiar with the curriculum, but I can assure you, your children will be prepared for college. My daughter is currently attending Cal Poly San Luis Obispo in mechanical engineering, and she's thriving. And I do believe it's because the foundation that she received through the Great Hearts system. So congratulations to you. I also know you wouldn't have your kids in the Great Hearts system if college wasn't important. So as college is very exciting, it's also very expensive. $130,000. That's the current cost of a 4-year in-state public education. The numbers are just shocking. And that's why over the last 15 years, I've become a college planning expert, a college financial planning expert. And I learned as a certified financial planner that traditional financial planning does very little to help families prepare for the crushing cost of college. So over the next 20 minutes, I'm going to share with you what I've learned. I have the facts, and I hope to prepare you financially for the day that you send your children off to college. So without further ado, we're going to go ahead and get started. So let me turn on my presentation here. So this is what we're going to cover tonight. We're going to talk about the true cost of college. What does college actually cost? You're going to learn that there's a lot of misinformation out there. And so again, I want you to have the facts. We're also going to talk about what financial aid is and what it is not. How do you get financial aid? And lastly, how do we ultimately pay for college? Now, there's this term, and it's called cost of attendance, or COA. It's the sticker price, and every school has one. And so here in the state of Arizona, ASU is, yes, $32,500 per year. You have to remember, college is more than just tuition. It's books, room and board, transportation, etc. This cost of attendance really represents everything except the pizza and beer. So in-state public universities are running about $32,500. If you choose to leave the state and go to a public school, or you're looking at the smaller private schools, well, now we're upwards of about $60,000 a year. And if you have your eyes set on those Ivy League, very prestigious schools, baby Ivies, yes, we're at $85,000 per year. And remember, to get a diploma, it takes about 4 years. Now, the cost of college is inflating at 3%, and it has been every year for the last 20 years. So we actually don't see a slowdown in sight. All right, so understanding financial aid is important because when parents see that sticker price, most of us fall out of our chairs. So that's usually when parents start looking for financial aid help. Well, you have to understand that there's really 2 types of financial aid. There's merit-based aid and there's need-based aid. Now, what merit is merit's based on your students' academics. And to get aid, you really have to be an academic scholar. Remember, merit money is what schools use to entice your student to come to their school. Now, in places like Arizona, our state schools, they are generous with merit money. But if you are looking at Ivy, very prestigious school, baby Ivies, please hear me. There is no merit money available. All the kids are smart. So really, when we're looking at those prestigious schools, the only type of financial aid that's available is need-based financial aid. And need is based on mom and dad's economics. So when we're talking about need-based financial aid, there's a term that you have to understand, and it's called the Student Aid Index, or SAI. This is a new term. And so in 2021, the FAFSA Simplification Act changed some things around. Congress passed this act. And the reason well, I should go back. The term that used to be used was something called EFC, expected family contribution. And EFC basically was the amount of money a family was expected to pay to put one student through college per year. Now, the challenge is that Congress and FAFSA really felt that EFC was misleading because families were being expected to pay far more than the expected family contributions. Schools were not very generous, so parents and families were having to spend a lot more money. So this FAFSA Simplification Act changed the term to Student Aid Index because they wanted it to be more reflective of who's actually supposed to pay for college. Now, I kind of laugh at that because I don't know a student alive that can afford to pay $32,500 a year for college. But nonetheless, this is what our Congress says is more reflective of what families or students should pay for college. Now, EFC, expected family contribution, and SAI are very similar calculations. They do look at several factors: parents' income and asset, students' income and assets, parents' age, and number of students in the household. So this is a formula that they use to determine how much aid families should be eligible for. Now, one of the big differences is that this sibling discount was terminated actually for next year. So families that have multiple kids in college at the same time will no longer receive a discount. So let me show you what that means. So the Student Aid Index formula is made up of two parts: the parent's contribution and the student's contribution. The parent's contribution, they're going to look at your income, and that's really your gross income. That includes everything or your adjusted gross income on your tax return, adding back any contributions you've made to a 401k, IRA, health savings plan, or a pension. Then they're going to look at all of your assets, and your assets do include any brokerage accounts, stocks, bonds, mutual funds, 529s. Those are actually considered a parent asset, cash, money markets, and real estate. Now, what's excluded from the asset calculation is money already in your retirement account. So the balance of your 401k is not an asset that's used to help with financial or to help with college. So money already in your retirement account, annuities, and cash value life insurance. The next thing is the student's contribution. So over here, they're going to look at your student's income. Now, if your student makes anything less than $6,500 a year, I would not worry about this. It's those students that have lots of income coming in, maybe from trusts or other things, or maybe they do have a very high paying income. But anything over $4,500 a year is going to start eating into a student's financial aid. Students' assets look like custodial accounts, things like a or a UGMA, a UTMA. These are custodial accounts that maybe grandparents have set up for their students. So those assets are actually used as a way for students to pay for college. So just some quick math. If you're a family and you make about $100,000 a year and you have $100,000 of visible assets, the FAFSA or the government is going to say you can afford to pay about $25,000 a year per child. Now, imagine that you have 2 kids in college and you still make $100,000. Well, the FAFSA is going to say you can afford to pay $25,000 per child or $50,000 a year for college. That elimination of the multiple or the sibling discount is really going to be very challenging for families. And so this is why understanding a good strategy to pay for college early in your high school career will lead to far more success when you ultimately get to paying for college. Now, this is important. Debt is not one of the factors that's used to determine your aid eligibility. So what's going to happen is you're going to fill out the FAFSA, the free application for federal student aid, your student's senior year. After you do that, you're going to get a student aid report back. And on that report is going to be the student aid index, or what the student is expected to pay for college. Well, after everybody falls over because that number is so high, you're going to say, what? How on earth could I ever be expected to pay that? I have a mortgage, I have car payments, I have Visa bills, I have debt. And the reality is they don't know you have debt and they don't care, because debt is not one of the 7 factors that are used to determine your financial aid eligibility. So this is why working with somebody like me early in the process can be very beneficial, because what I help families do is close that gap between what the government says they can afford to pay and what they can actually afford to pay. In some instances, depending on how you earn your income and where your assets are at, we actually can lower that student aid index, or what you're expected to pay. But in reality, what we're doing more of the time is getting families more efficient with the money that's currently running through their fingertips. Do you have any high interest debt, bad spending habits? Are there anything that we can do to clean that money up so we can free up cash flow? So in essence, what we do is we lower what you're expected to pay and we increase your overall monthly cash flow. And what that does is closes the gap, making college much more affordable. Now, need, remember we talked about need is how most financial aid is delivered based on mom and dad's economics. So the need is determined by taking that cost of attendance, that's that sticker price. Every school has one: tuition, room, board, books, supplies, fees, etc. You're going to subtract out that student aid index. That's what you're expected to pay. And remember, this is how we calculate that that formula. And then that's going to be your financial aid. That's the maximum amount of aid a family can receive. Now, to get that financial aid, I mentioned this earlier, you have to fill out the FAFSA, the free application for federal student aid. Now, as you get deeper into this process, you're going to learn some terminology. The first one's called the federal methodology. The federal methodology basically means the FAFSA. And so the federal methodology, or the FAFSA, that's the form you fill out for the federal methodology. There's no cost to complete it. Approximately 11 million are filed annually. And you fill these forms out October 1st of your student senior year. You cannot do it earlier. October 1st of your student senior year. Now, that's when the window opens. That's not when it must be completed. Now, interestingly enough, the financial information that you're going to use to populate the FAFSA is from what we call prior. So they're really looking at your financial situation 2 years before your student actually goes to college. And I'll give you an example of that in a second. There is a 30% audit rate on the FAFSA forms, but the audit is happening from the college that your student ultimately goes to, not the IRS. Now, there is a tool, it's called the IRS Retrieval Data Tool, and I highly recommend families do not use this. So here's the FAFSA. Like I said, it's available October 1st of your student's senior year, and here's kind of the dating of it. So if you have a student who's attending college next year, fall of 2024, you will be filling out the FAFSA October 1st of this year, 2023. But interestingly enough, you're going to be using your tax return from 2022. So you can see what they mean by prior. So think about when your student's going to college 2 years before that. That year is really the year we have to understand financially the strategy that you're going to take for college. Because if you're going to go on a need-based strategy and try to, maximize need-based financial aid, that's going to look different than if you need to probably employ a tax strategy or trying to reallocate some tax dollars to pay for college. So that's why planning for college financially earlier rather than later will be a significant benefit to families. Now, here's another term. It's called institutional methodology. This form, what's required is called the CSS profile. Now, the CSS profile is only required by about 3,000 colleges in the US. Now, remember, we have 4,000 four-year universities in the United States. Now, the CSS profile is required by, about 300 of them. And these are mostly private schools. These are those highly selective schools, because if you need money, you have to prove it. The CSS profile has a much more in-depth look into your finances. The time frame is the same. The CSS profile window opens October 1st for students their senior year. Now, this one, there is a cost to complete it. It is $25 for the first submission and then $16 thereafter. Now, remember, we talked about the FAFSA Simplification Act of 2021, because colleges get to determine how they meet your need. And there's really 3 possibilities: scholarships or grants. We love that. You don't have to pay that money back. Loans, there's student loans, parent loans, but of course, all of that has to be paid back. And then there's something called GAP. The school doesn't have to do anything. If the school is not interested in your student coming to them, they do not have to help you meet need. That's why the FAFSA Simplification Act of 2021 changed expected family contribution to student aid index. Families today, more than ever, are expected to pay for college. In some instances, you can get help. But literally, if you make more than $60,000 a year, you will be expected to pay something for college. So understanding that early, having these discussions with your students early, financial discussions, will go a long way to help with success in where your student ultimately goes to college. Now, how much money is available? Every college website now has something called the net price calculator. The net price calculator actually combines your student's academics with mom and dad's economics. So you can get an idea of what your out-of-pocket cost is going to be. There's also a marvelous website called collegeboard.org. On that website, you can look up and research your student's school of choice. You can find out percentage of need. How generous are the schools? How much is gift money versus loans? Every school is different. So understanding the generosity of the schools your students are interested in, again, will help you make that ultimate decision of where students go to college. So how can we help families? Well, the first thing, we're going to look at this family, Mr. and Mrs. We are strapped. So the process that I go through with my families is I help you understand what you're expected to pay, that student aid index. How efficient are you? What's your true cost of college? And can we make it more affordable? So here's the current situation. Mom and dad are 45 years old and they have 2 college-bound kids. Mom and dad make about $155,000 a year, and they do have some savings, $17,500. They do have credit card debt. It's $16,000. They have a loan on their 401k, and they do own their home with a mortgage. Now they have about $40,000 in 529 money. They're planning, they want to send their kids to school. So how can we help them? Well, first and foremost, they're going to learn their student aid index is $35,000. Again, that's what a student is expected to pay for college. College today, students need our help. It's very difficult for a student to go to college all on their own. Student loans won't cover it. So mom and dad usually have to get involved to help pay the cost of college. Now, what can we do for this family? We're going to restructure their debt to improve their cash flow. What we did is we refinanced their house. We took some cash out and paid all the debt. Now, what that did is it improved their overall cash flow by $2,300 a month. That's a lot. Now, we know college is going to cost them about $2,900 a month. Remember, college is like having this huge expense dropped in your lap monthly, or you can, pay for it by semester. But looking at the college cost of $2,900 a month, they improve their cash flow by $2,300, and they're going to spend down those 529 plans at $1,000 a month. So this family who had no idea how they were going to cover the cost of college now has a $400 a month surplus. But what you have to remember is college is not just 1 year, it's 4 years. So I made this chart. So if you have a 9th grader today, remember the cost of college is inflating. So by the time they go to college, that cost will have inflated to almost $35,000 a year. With no financial aid, that family is going to be expected to pay about $146,000 for their current 9th grader and about $160,000 for their 7th grader, for a total amount of $306,000. These numbers are crazy. They are just so big. Now, if you started saving today, you would need to set aside about $31,000 for the next 10 years to have a bucket of money big enough to pay that expense. So when we look at the expense of college, right, it's not just $306,000. It's $306,000 at interest, because if I turn over $306,000 to a college, that's money I no longer have for my retirement. So money at interest is double that. And so that's why I'm so passionate about what I do, because college is really a retirement problem. Most families will be able to cash flow or help their kids with college, but it's really, what will that do to your future? And so this is how I help families. I help families in 2 different ways. The first way is, I alluded to this earlier, getting you more efficient. This pie chart represents how a typical American family spends their money, as reported by the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Now, this big chunk right here, that's taxes. We pay a lot of taxes in this country. federal tax, state tax, unemployment, self-employment, Social Security, Medicare, gas, hotel. We pay a lot of tax. The next is lifestyle. Obviously, we work to live. And this lifestyle bucket, by the way, is where we choose to send our kids to college. And when we don't have enough money, what do? We go into debt. We borrow the money to have the lifestyle that we want. And this last little sliver here, that goes to savings. Now, you can talk to 99% of traditional financial planners, and they're going to focus right here on that 10%. How much money do you have? Where's it at? Oh, let's get you a better rate of return. Well, what makes me unique is I actually focus on these big chunks first, because what if I can help you send less money to taxes and I can help you send less money to debt? That would then free up money to put into your lifestyle, giving you more dollars to help send your kid to college. But maybe we could repurpose some of that found money to savings for your future. So that's what I call getting more efficient with your wealth. The second way is I help families understand a different way to pay for college. Most of you know how to pay an expense in two different ways, but I'm going to introduce you to a third. The first is debt. Everyone knows about debt. You can pay cash for college or spend down an asset like a 529, or you can use something called the wealth builder strategy. So this line right here, it represents financial zero. It means you own nothing, but you owe nothing. So if I don't have the money and I want to buy something, right, I go into debt. I borrow the money at interest and then I pay it back, getting to financial zero. And if I do this all through my lifetime, when I get into retirement, I'm no better off. Now, paying cash or spending down an asset is a little different because we save the money at interest. So we do make some interest, but when the time comes to pay for college, we give it all to the school, going back to financial zero. And if I do this method all my life, you'll see that I'm actually in no better position. Now, the wealth builder strategy is something that's employed by 85% of the banks in the United States, many major corporations. Myself and all of my clients, we implement what's called the wealth builder. And what that looks like is you still save the money. You're saving your money in a guaranteed bucket that's growing, compounding uninterrupted every single year. Now, when the time comes to use the money, we do not withdraw the money from the asset. We allow our money to continue compounding uninterrupted, and then we borrow against the asset. That allows the forward momentum of our money. We never go back to financial zero, and we can continue to use this money all the way into retirement. So you can see by implementing the wealth builder strategy, I have more money in retirement than, of course, the debtor or the saver that pays cash. So we've talked about the expense of college, and it is expensive. And the goal is really of the program and why we do this every year is to help families and motivate them to start planning early for the financial cost of college. And so if you now realize you're going to have to pay something for college and would like some help, my commitment to Great Hearts is that I offer families a 1-hour, no obligation consultation on college. And I help you understand what you're going to be expected to pay. We'll look at how efficient you are with your money. And we'll even look at, is the wealth builder strategy even a viable option for your family? Now, this meeting will be purely educational. There is absolutely no selling that goes on in it. And if you're interested in doing that, what I offer, like I said, is that 1-hour meeting. The meetings are via Zoom Monday through Friday. I meet with families from 8 to 4 o'clock. I do ask that both mom and dad be involved in the meeting. We're going to talk about a lot of money, and trust me, everybody gets involved with that. At that meeting, I do ask for a lot of information. I want your tax returns, assets, debt, all of that. And it's not because I'm nosy, but that just helps you understand what you'll be expected to pay. And so if you're interested in that, you can head over to my website, monicafelton.com. I'd like you to go to the contact me, and you can put your name and information in here. Please let me know that you're a Great Hearts family. And then I will reach out to you or my assistant and we'll get you on my calendar. I'd also like to point you to another resource. Here's my website, as I mentioned, monicafelton.com. But I've also written a book, Making College More Affordable, and you actually can access that on my website as well. So loads of information on there, videos, all kinds of things to help you better prepare for college. So I want to thank you all for joining, for spending the time on this call to learn more about financially, college planning. I have families ask me all the time, when is the best time to start college planning? I will tell you the best time to start college planning was when your student was in the womb, but the next best time is today. So I want to thank you so much. If I can be of assistance, please don't hesitate to reach out. I'm actually going to turn this over now and take any questions that you all might have.